Hello, everybody. It's Clint. Welcome to Sweetcast. I'm back for another week of videos. I've been kind of on this. This wasn't intentional, but I've been kind of on this schedule where I'm making videos throughout the week, and then I kind of stop over the weekend, give or take a day, and then I continue on doing better with videos. And part of that is just, I don't know. It's been nice having weekends. I want to talk about this interview, Lauren Southern. Michael Malice did the interview. This is really important, I think, because I see patterns. I see the world in patterns. I know I'm not alone here, and I've been around long enough to see how it works. We'll put it like that. So I want to share this with you. And before we do, let me show you. Though first, Fatal is on Indiegogo right now. Check it out, and if you haven't backed it, it's a great time to back it. I just talked to Charlie the other day. There we go, another backer. Talked to Charlie the other day, and he is finishing up some assignments for advertising, and then he's back on Fatal much more fully, so I'm pretty excited about that. So that's coming up. All right. So, Lauren Southern. I got some information into this whole network that I did not know of before. So first off, I want to talk about the comic book industry right now and how it's set up. There's a political divide. This is no surprise. This is something we talk about all the time. And I listened to an interview with Sean Gordon Murphy, and he talked about this political divide as well. Everybody knows that it exists. Why? Because it is ubiquitous. It's across everything. There is no place safe from the political dichotomy that currently exists. Part of the reason is because of the internet. It's because of social media, more in particular. It's because it's like one big Thanksgiving dinner where you're sitting around the table with people that you don't disagree with, maybe even dislike, but you're still there. You still hear their opinions, and you have opinions on their opinions. And why? Don't eat Thanksgiving together. If you don't like the person, just don't. But this is the sort of the weird, strange world that we've built. So the world that we exist in right now. So eventually I'm going to leave Twitter. I've talked about this a lot. I know people are probably getting sick and tired of me hemming and hawing over it. I really eventually I'm going to leave. Eventually you're going to leave. I don't think these platforms are just going to perpetually exist forever, because at some point you start to weigh the benefits and the risks and you realize, what is the point? But for now, I guess I'm there. I got rid of Facebook. It feels great to have gotten rid of Facebook. Again, Twitter, eventually it's going to happen. The weird thing, though, is I found out when I started to really limit my time on Twitter, I started to act a little bit more professional. Not that I was ever that bad. Is I started getting people saying, you've given up the fight. Like there's something to be won there. Like the Thanksgiving table. Like just arguing with people. Not that I was arguing with people on Twitter, but the idea of just not being there, it was sort of like giving something up. It's giving up madness. Is what it is. It's crazy. Yes, I understand you could be extremely disciplined with it, but it's easy to not be disciplined with it. And I don't know how much of it is a crutch. I'm still working through these things. So the reason I bring up Lauren Southern and Michael Malice here is it wasn't that long ago. A few years ago, I remember when Lauren Southern was a big deal, when everyone was talking about her. And you had Milo Yiannopoulos, and Lauren Southern and Milo were friends, and she even went on to the Dave Rubin show to defend Milo when the allegations came out about him. I didn't follow it all that closely, but I knew all about all this kind of stuff. I knew it was there. I want you to hear from Lauren's words on what that was like behind the scenes, and then I'm gonna interrupt her and let you know. So listen to this.
People have to understand is in the background within the kind of YouTube political sphere, mover and shakers, there is kind of a group of people, and I see it as a giant Mexican standoff on thin ice. They all have blackmail on each other. They all kind of pretend to be friends publicly because they have to. It's like, you promote my book, I promote your book, I've got blackmail on you, and we're all going to stand here in a giant Mexican standoff. I never wanted to be any part of that, ever. So I kind of was like, no. Like, people would send me books of theirs. They'd be like, promote it, do a tour with me, cancel your tour, do this, do that. And I just say, nope. And I kind of cut myself off from that world entirely, which is a bad idea because that kind of turns them all against you.
Yeah. Then they point their guns at you instead of each other.
Then they point your guns at you. But I was like, screw this, walk away, bam, bam, bam. I managed to survive. I'm happy for it. But when this article was initially written, there were, I'd say, 4 reasons why it was written. One was my producers, Kaylin and George. They denied putting Milo Yiannopoulos, who wrote the article, in a movie called UK.
Okay, I think that's good enough. You get the idea. I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole here. But the predicament that she described with the Mexican standoff on ice, is that problematic to say? That is true in many degrees in the comic book industry. Again, like, I watched that interview with Sean Gordon Murphy, and he said that he saw people falling out of love with comics once you get to know the industry. Not that you fall out of love with, I'm adding this myself, but it's not that you're falling out of love with the medium. You're falling out of love with the idea you had for what comics are. You know, you think that comic people are just, man, I'm living the dream. I'm making comic books. This is how life is supposed to be. And you're in the bullpen and you're bouncing ideas off each other and life is great. There's definitely that, like, the creative side to it is awesome. Making comics. I don't work for any major publisher, so my experience is clearly going to be very different. But the internet side of things, the internet personality side of things is massive, and you don't see it as clearly as you do the political divide. So I already addressed, there's a political divide left and right. Anybody that denies that is, I don't know, not seeing it or just denying it. I don't know how you could not see that. But the other side of it is that there's this weird collectivist mentality that starts to breed. I'm pretty lucky because I haven't been directly affected by it so much, but it's there. There's a thing. It's weird that, like, I get so many people asking me to promote their books. And to be fair, recently, I would even say in the past year, I haven't had major issues with it. I think that there's a pretty good understanding that people are asking for a favor, and it's up to me if I feel like spending an hour or more of my time to do a live stream, which I don't really enjoy doing, just promote random books. That's a huge favor that I'm just giving to strangers, essentially, and sometimes my friends. But people seem to understand that. I think for the past year, it's been pretty good. Before that, though, it's like I would run into the weirdest circumstances, and what Lauren Southern described here, I think, is accurate. There ends up being, this collection of information for people that are your quote unquote friends, or people, not even friends, people you're friendly with. And then that'll turn into leverage later. It's strange. It's silly. It's just the most ridiculous thing. But this is how internet movements die. This is how things go terribly wrong. And if you think that you're immune to it somehow, I think that's a huge mistake to say that, I would never do that. Nobody I associate would ever do that. They would, and they will. Okay. And I'm going to just clarify. I'm not specifically talking about anybody that I'm like direct, like people you see me stream with on the regular. I'm not talking about anybody like this. It's not important who I'm not talking about anybody in particular. That's the point. The point is, even in the mainstream comic book industry, this is what the whole social media world breeds. It's, hey, Sean Gordon Murphy is getting attention. I need attention. I have this story about Sean Gordon Murphy from the past. Or I have this story about, whomever it is. I'm trying to think who that creator was that, whatever. Anyway, stealing money from a creator or whatever. You'd figure out these old stories that you have, and they're kept in the back pocket just in case you need it. And that time when you need it could be, hey, I've got a book and I'm trying to make money. So I'm going to pull this old story out from nowhere and try to make some money. That sort of stuff absolutely 100% happens in the comic book industry. I think after hearing this interview, it happens everywhere. I don't think it's unique to comics. I think it's something that is tied to social media because that is the worst of human behavior. However, because you're always there and you're always in people's business and, all that kind of stuff, it's there. So it becomes the currency. The currency becomes fear in a collective. That's how you gain power or control, is people are afraid that you're going to tarnish their name, that you're going to destroy their business, their book's going to do terrible. And whether or not, those other creators are even have any intention of doing it, that fear factor is the reason why people get dirt on others and you end up having this Mexican standoff. Okay. So the way that it should run is capitalism. Now, I think in comics, networking is great, but the more that I've seen things work, the more I realize there has to be some kind of reciprocation, some kind of exchange. Otherwise, you're owed these, endless favors that you can't pay back. That's how it ends up feeling like. That's not a good way to live or run a business. The way that it really should be is paying for advertising. Or, hey, if I'm going to be promoting someone on my channel, the reciprocation, they'll promote me on their channel. And we're providing the same kind of service to the same, relative same degree, and it's beneficial for both of us. The transaction is complete. You owe each other nothing. That's the way that it should work. That's the way that it works in business. And that's why business goes for years and years and years without these ridiculous scenarios. It's because in these scenarios, it ends up being, perceived, favors, something that you're owed. That's a perception. I hope this is making sense. I'm not trying to get too deep into the weeds here. I'm trying to make this very clear, but they're really, I think the next move for a lot of people, going forward for the health of indie comics, especially, and even in the comic book industry, as it's related to social media, is if you're going to hire somebody to draw, letter, write, print, like anything for you, for your book, you pay them. Or you are trading services. You draw a cover from me, I draw a cover from you. We're even, totally even. We're good. That's the way that it ought to work. Same thing with promotion. Yeah. So how do you get started if you don't, you don't have that platform? What can you possibly give back? Well, you have to build up a platform. You cannot have a nice long career in comics, in indie comics. You can't expect to have anything just relying off other people's channels. I don't think long-term that's a good strategy. The more that I look at it, I think it's a nice supplement. Again, if you're exchanging, there's some kind of exchange there. And it's clear, like nobody owes anybody anything other than, the product or service that you're trading or paying for. But if you want to have a long career in comics, you've got to figure out a way to stand on your own and have some rules. Yes, network with people, but I think this is important to be vigilant against. Okay, the thing I'm worried about is I start talking about these things because I'm talking about the general principle. I'm worried people are like, oh, Clint knows some. No, I'm not having problems with literally anybody that I work with. What I'm saying is that if this group of idealists, right, that were, the new right or whatever, what happened to them? So many of them faded away, and it's because of this weird collective that was held together by fear. That was the problem. Who are the successful people out of this? The same movement. I mean, I would say like maybe Ben Shapiro is one of them. I think, he had a little different of a route. Dave Rubin, maybe a little bit different of a route. But these long-lasting channels that have managed to build something that's lasting, it's because they're very strict with how they're acting. And it's not across political lines. I'm talking about professionally, the people that you work with, hire, so on and so on. So my point is here, a little bit less collectivism, I think, is a good thing. And I think there's going to be more respect when you're not always constantly at the same Thanksgiving table. Hope that makes sense. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts. But I found this to be really eye-opening, and I think sort of a word of warning. I want to think about this a little bit more and apply it, but I want to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out Fatal on Indiegogo. And while you're there, look around. There's a lot of other great comic books on Indiegogo. Look for good books and be buying comics. I think that's ultimately what's healthy for the industry. So thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video.